à-bas-le-ciel.
Habits don't define who you are, but they exhibit who you are. And with time, not even all that much time, you become the reflected image of your habits. The fundamental solution for being a terrible person is not to work on the optics, is not to try to tackle the fact that people perceive you as unlovable, as a scumbag, as garbage, as a terrible person, but to work on the fact that you actually are a terrible person. What diet and exercise can do for you is offer a very limited and very shallow change in your personal appearance. And by contrast, changing who you actually are is profound and seemingly unlimited.
À-bas-le-ciel.
This is 6 a.m., freezing my ass off, west coast of Canada, walking to the gym. Why would I do that to myself? Why would I put myself out here on the block, my fingers and toes and nose numb in this cold, beneath this strangely bright white overcast sky, first thing in the morning, just to go and do 200 push-ups on my knuckles on a rubberized floor at a time of day when it can be guaranteed there will not even be one good-looking woman at the aforementioned gym. At a time when the only people working out there are basically endurance athlete nerds who bring their tie to the gym to change into their office apparel at about 6:45 a.m. and go off to do their respectable jobs. Well, I go back to my apartment with my gorgeous 25-year-old friend to do YouTube. Why would I do this to myself? This is the fundamental reason, old man. Some of us are up at 6 a.m. walking to the gym, and some of us are on YouTube feeling sorry for ourselves on a whole nother level. People think the difference between discipline and self-discipline is the difference between mustard and Dijon mustard. And it's not. Nothing could be further from the truth. What you've got to learn in this life is to laugh at and sneer and spit on discipline and to value self-discipline. And this is exactly Nikocado Avocado's problem in life. I see you breaking down weeping in one video after another, old man. I see that you've slid down that slippery slope from being a hardcore vegan, going to Chiang Mai, Thailand, just to bask in the reflected glow of Durian Rider and Freely, chase those YouTube views, to sitting around eating Canadian McDonald's, all you can eat mukbang, and then breaking down weeping, wondering why it is that you're fat and can't lose weight.
I just want to be normal, and I'm not normal. And the last time I talked to Orly, he just told me to jump off the roof. I'm disgusting. I'm so ugly. Look at me. I fucking have this double chin. I've worked so hard trying to lose my weight to get rid of my double chin.
Given the fact that you clicked on this video, this is a situation most likely you already know. Nikocado Avocado is an ex-vegan, and he's been coming on YouTube, he's been coming on the internet uploading videos, weeping, crying for help, saying in effect, somebody fix me, I'm broken. But why? Number one, he feels unlovable. Number two, he actually is unlovable. Number three, he is aware of points 1 and point 2, but he is not sure of what to do about it. He knows about the problem, he does not yet know the solution. The problem is not that people perceive him as unlovable, whereas in fact he's a really great guy. Make no mistake, people perceive him as unlovable because he's a piece of subhuman garbage, and to make matters worse, he's at that dangerous level of enlightenment and ignorance where he knows enough that he can accurately perceive himself as subhuman garbage also, but feels powerless. He knows not what to do about this fact. The difference between discipline and self-discipline is the difference between being the commander or the general in your own army and being the lazy piece of shit that the army commander has to scream at while he's doing push-ups, that the other soldiers have to roll out of bed, or other people have to pick you up, explain to you why you're motivated, where basically you're like the psychological equivalent of a leech, not sucking the blood out of other people, but sucking something out of them that they're probably much more reluctant to give away than their blood. Their own sense of will and direction. Other people have exactly what you lack, even in accomplishing the things you do want to accomplish yourself, let alone those things that you lack the foresight or vision to realize you ought to want to accomplish. You see this shit? Grocery store isn't even open yet. This doesn't just apply to doing push-ups at the gym, of course. People who lack self-discipline, those are going to be the people who pay to go to a language school, not to have a teacher explain the language to them, not to have the teacher provide them with the tools they need to learn the language, but precisely for the school to provide them with deadlines, expectation, peer pressure even. Basically, these are people who lack the ability to direct and motivate and govern themselves and spend their whole lives trying to sell themselves into a kind of slavery, whether that's with a boyfriend or a girlfriend who holds them to a higher standard, whether that's with a university professor, language teacher, maybe they have a trainer at the gym, maybe they have someone they look up to who can hold them to that higher standard. But these are people who are going to spend their whole lives looking around outside themselves for something that the rest of us are going to find within. It should be obvious to all of you by now that we are discussing a problem that cannot be solved through diet and exercise. As much as I might love to pretend to solve this problem by selling you a copy of my ebook for $17.99 so that you also can learn how to do 200 push-ups a day on your knuckles by supposedly following black and white diagrams and getting a few paragraphs of meaningless pep talk in bold italic text interspersed with anecdotes about my unbelievably awesome life, that's actually not the way to go in this specific scenario. Again, the fundamental solution for being a terrible person is not to work on the optics, is not to try to tackle the fact that people perceive you as unlovable, as a scumbag, as garbage, as a terrible person, but to work on the fact that you actually are a terrible person. So those of you who follow me on Twitter will notice I said this a couple times in the last few days. What diet and exercise can do for you is offer a very limited and very shallow change in your personal appearance. And by contrast, changing who you actually are is profound and seemingly unlimited. So in talking about discipline and self-discipline, it's much the same whether we're talking about something intangible and ethical and philosophical, like veganism, or something entirely tangible, like doing 200 push-ups a day. It's not the same thing if you only become vegan because your boyfriend or your girlfriend already was vegan and forces you to be vegan against your will and in accordance with their will. That's their self-discipline, that's them dominating you. Now there is a further wrinkle to this because Nikocado is currently living under the delusion that he eats food for a living. That what he's paid to do is come on camera and eat unhealthy food like McDonald's, Arby's, whatever, Taco Bell, I don't know. That people pay to watch him eat food. And you're wrong, Nick. Your job, what you're paid to do, is to come on the internet and talk about your feelings. You don't do a cooking show, man. Nobody really can possibly be so ignorant that they don't know what a miserable fat dude eating a McDonald's hamburger looks like. Most of us see that every day. That's not what the show is, man. The show ultimately is you. In life also, I'm not going to oversell you on this concept. I'm not going to say that veganism is all things to all people or is the solution to all of your problems. But the question of whether or not you should be vegan, become vegan again, ultimately doesn't have to do with the food, doesn't have to do with the animals, doesn't have to do with ecology, it doesn't even have to do with your health. It has to do with you. It has to do with what kind of human being do you want to be. you showing a sense of responsibility, who you are, the person you want to become, that you don't just want to be a mindless consumer. You want to, at the bare minimum, be a mindful consumer. That's not a lot to ask, Nick. That's not a character test. That would be demanding too much. It doesn't really matter whether you think of this optimistically or pessimistically, but on the level of practical philosophy, the good news is you can change who you are. You can be, in your own eyes, a good person rather than a contemptible piece of garbage. But the way to do that is by changing who you are, by fundamentally becoming a good person, not raising your self-esteem, not making yourself appear to be a good person in the eyes of others, but making a change that starts with what for some people is a crushing and demoralizing realization of just who it is they are right now, just what it is that needs to be changed, just all of the assumptions and excuses in your life that have to be discarded. And you know, some people are broken by that. Some people never come back. Nick, you're the kind of guy where if you weren't vegan, I'd have no reason to even know you exist. I would just have no reason to care. And there are people I've known for years who went from vegan to ex-vegan. You know, one that really struck me recently was American Unicorn. If you guys search for American Unicorn on this channel, you're going to find a real funny, amusing interview between me and her. She's certainly at the opposite extreme from a guy like Nikocado. She's obsessed with weightlifting and pushing her body to its natural limits, highly disciplined sort of character, and now also a creative artist. She also has a background in baking. A lot of common ground there. Guess what? The minute she went back to eating meat, it's like, why am I talking to you again? And it isn't even the minute it happened. It's the minute I found out it happened. And you know, habits don't define who you are, but they exhibit who you are. And with time, not even all that much time, you become the reflected image of your habits. And that happens relatively quickly with the habit of going to the gym, with diet and exercise. But it happens instantaneously with the habits of the mind. So yeah, Nick, you can change. You can be a different person. You can be a better person. You can be a good person. Question we all got asked now is, will you?
À-bas-le-ciel.